And we're hoping to hear from city officials just after the 7 o'clock hour. Well, the window is slowly closing to see through the findings of the Zondo Commission as the country edges closer to general elections and the 6th Parliament is dissolved in 2024. And this is according to Corruption Watch, and I'm joined by Executive Director Karam Singh. Karam, good evening to you and welcome. I'm sure many South Africans would join the call to see results from the Zondo state capture report in terms of prosecutions and a return to state coffers of stolen money. Why is this becoming more and more, this call becoming more and more urgent?
Thank you so much, Iman. Thanks for having me on the program. I mean, I think the urgency is that the longer we go without seeing implementation of Zondo Commission findings and recommendations, the greater peril that we put ourselves in terms of realizing the value of this incredible investment, this huge piece of work, 3 years of inquiry, an additional year writing the report. It's a 4-year investment. Lots of findings and recommendations. I mean, fundamentally, there are two kinds of recommendations. One relating to, further investigations and then, possible criminal charges. And then the others relating to the structural recommendations. In terms of the work of the MPA, we know that the wheels of justice turn slowly. Cases have been enrolled, but I think obviously there is frustration that 1 year down the line, we haven't seen significant progress in any of those cases. As for the implementation of the structural recommendations, when we talk about the window closing, I think we're talking about the work of this Parliament. This Parliament's going to run out of time when it comes to processing new legislation, putting new systems in place. And we just haven't seen, 1 year on from the finalization of the reports, significant process despite protestations otherwise from Parliament and from the Speaker.
We'll come back to the systemic issues and work of Parliament, as you say. But you mentioned something I want to ask you about now. The SABC, the NPA, others will say, we have made arrests, we've charged people, we've even frozen, billions of rands. You've just said it, the wheels of justice turn slowly. Why is this not good enough?
Well, it's not good enough because we don't know where it's going to finish. We don't know how well capacitated the MPA are to drive these cases now to successful prosecutions. We had the initial case, the New Lane investment case in the Free State that, the defense didn't even have to put up a case. That case was dismissed at a very early stage. We have this, fundamental trust deficit, right, between citizens and the state. There's a fundamental sense that we haven't really gotten out of the era of state capture because we're not seeing fundamental results in terms of accountability. So one can be patient with the MPA. One can sympathize with the challenges that the MPA have, but until we see a successful case, until we see the ingenuity of the prosecution to say that there are people that were responsible for state capture, and this is the consequence, then there's going to be this sense of dissatisfaction in the public.
There is some concerning signaling in the space. The fact that crime syndicates can take root in South Africa, organized crime gains a foothold, it signals high-level connectedness and potential alliances with people in power. Would you agree with that? And if you do, we would assume they would enjoy protection. So how will we ever get the big fish?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it that we have an organized crime problem. We've known about the construction mafias, for instance. We've known about the so-called ESCOM dossier, the veracity of which in some ways has been affirmed by some of the senior leadership in the police. So, what we understand from this kind of organized criminal activity is that there's deep connectedness between organized crime and political leadership. Now, that hasn't been fully exposed. It wasn't fully exposed by the Zondo Commission. We don't see senior politicians to date who've been arraigned in terms of their involvement in state capture. We've seen other key figures who've been indicted. So, this remains a serious concern, and I think the police, have been forthcoming to a certain extent in saying that we do have an organized crime problem. It is related to politics, and we don't have it under control.
Again, it supports the theory that if we haven't seen major results, such as the ones that you've been describing from a damning report which told us that state capture evolved from a small group of actors with a network of collaborators inside and outside the state. The aim was clear. It was to weaken the system. It was to exploit and weaken state institutions. It also had the intention of subverting democracy. All of these things, are synthesized, and they're there for us to read in the Zondo Commission. And as you're saying, we haven't seen substantive action. It seems, Karam, that the possibility of a turnaround may be elusive, whether or not elections are coming soon, and we expect the work of this parliament to conclude before their term ends.
I think we have to separate certain aspects of this. So I think, reform in the political system, improving the oversight function of Parliament, passing good legislation that deals with issues of public procurement, that deals with issues of the intelligence agency, that deals with the leadership of IPID, is all something which is within the power of Parliament, this Parliament, and if not this Parliament, the next Parliament. When it comes to fixing the criminal justice system, let's be clear that the Zondo Commission didn't take on the police. It didn't hold a series of inquiries based upon corruption within the police. So we still have a serious Achilles heel when it comes to the role of the police, and we still have this major gap in our anti-corruption infrastructure in terms of a dedicated anti-corruption agency. So we've got the ID now at the MPA, which is going to be made permanent. We've got the MPA saying that they've cleaned house, that they've turned the corner, that they're ready to prosecute these cases. So that's a whole separate trajectory now that must play itself out. And I think, as I've said, we've got reasons to be skeptical, but there's no reason to say that we've lost those battles before we've even fought them. So, I think we need to be quite specific, when we look at the post-Zondo layout in terms of what's achievable in the short term, what's going to take longer, and certainly in terms of fixing the criminal justice system, ensuring that we have a police force which is above board and free from corruption is a battle that we still have to fight. And that's going to take us beyond elections, and that may take us even well into the next administration.
Well, let's see how the story plays out, Karam, before we can write the end, as if any country really can write, the end, at the end of their story of corruption. It's a perennial problem that most governments, if not all governments across the world, have to deal with. Thank you for sharing your insight and perspective with us, and again, calling for urgency and action on the findings of the Zondo State Capture Commission. Corruption Watch Executive Director, Karam Singh.